Good evening, everyone. We're truly glad to have you back with us tonight. From forgotten caves hiding unspeakable horrors to smiling shadows that stalk you through the fog. Tonight, we bring you 3 terrifying true encounters from rangers who have seen what most of us would never survive. If you're into real horror stories that keep you up at night, make sure to subscribe and join our growing community of night listeners. You're watching Sleep Horror Stories. My name is Alex. A while ago, I worked as a forest ranger at a national park in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm originally from Mexico, but I became a U.S. citizen after marrying my wife here. That job was actually my first official one in the States. We lived on the outskirts of town, where it's basically nothing but forest for miles. My job was to monitor a large portion of that wilderness, keeping the peace, helping lost hikers, and making sure no one got hurt. That park is popular for camping, with incredible views and thick, beautiful vegetation. But with that beauty came danger. Many people have gone missing in those woods. Some never returned. I've got more than a few stories from my time there, but this one is by far the most horrifying and grotesque. It started in 2007. That year, reports of missing persons in the area began to increase. Coincidentally, it was also the year I started working there. I was partnered with another ranger, Mark, who had been on the job for years. He told me he was worried. Even with full search teams, they never found a single trace of the people who had disappeared. It was like they had vanished off the face of the earth. One day, I was doing a routine patrol with my dog, Max. He was trained for search and rescue. We walked for a long time, and before I realized it, I had drifted far out of my assigned zone. It was still daylight, but the tall trees and thick canopy above made it feel like dusk. I wasn't scared. I knew the woods well and could find my way back. But suddenly, Max started barking like crazy. He tugged on the leash so hard I nearly lost grip. He never barked without reason. He was pulling towards something, clearly tracking a scent, so I followed. We pushed deeper into the forest, to a place I'd never seen before. The trees were packed so tightly that barely any sunlight made it through. It looked like night. That's when I saw it. Hidden in the shadows was a small cave, barely noticeable at first. What froze me in place was what was written in red paint above the entrance. Free hugs. Max lost it. He barked uncontrollably, trying to charge into the cave. I drew my weapon and slowly approached. I turned on my flashlight. Inside, it was pitch black. But once I lit it up, I saw it. The floor was littered with bones. Human bones. The stench was unbearable, putrid and nauseating. I didn't dare go further in. I had to report this immediately. My radio was useless, no signal. I rushed back until I found a spot where it worked and called it in. Soon, the place was swarming with law enforcement. They confirmed everything I saw and more. Torn clothing, broken cell phones, other personal items from the missing people. At first, they thought it might be animal attacks, until they ventured deeper into the cave. That's where they found an old, filthy cot with a rotting mattress, knives of all shapes and sizes, and disturbing symbols scratched into the walls. That's when it became clear. Whoever did this was human. The remains were tested and confirmed to belong to multiple victims, some of whom had only disappeared days earlier. Yet their bodies had already been reduced to nothing but bone, which led investigators to a horrifying conclusion. They were cannibals. Searches went on for days, but no one was found. So authorities left cameras hidden in the area, hoping whoever was responsible would return. Nothing happened for days, until one night, the cameras captured movement. A couple, if you could even call them that. They walked like apes. Their faces were deformed, almost mutated. Police rushed in and surrounded the cave. They ordered them to come out. Silence. Then suddenly, the man charged one of the officers. Violent, animalistic. They shot him. He survived. They eventually captured both and brought them in. But neither could speak. They used gestures like feral creatures. After much difficulty, it was confirmed. They were behind all the disappearances. They had taken red paint from one of their victims and wrote "free hugs" on the cave to lure people in. According to investigators, they would spy on campers, study their routines, then strike. They weren't just killers. They were predators. Word got out. People stopped camping. After that, I could barely bring myself to patrol alone. Because part of me still wonders, were they the only ones out there? I stayed on the job for a few more years, but I never forgot that day. And I never will. Even now, when I tell this story, I still feel that fear. This next story happened back when I worked as a forest ranger at a well-known foggy park in Oregon. It was years ago, but it's just one of many paranormal encounters I had while working there. The forest itself is kind of famous among tourists, mostly because of the thick fog that never seems to lift. It gives the place a mysterious charm, but also makes it a perfect setting for strange things to happen. One night, we received a call from a group of women staying in one of the rental cabins. They were having a bachelorette party when they claimed someone or something was watching them from the woods. I was the closest ranger on duty, so I drove over. That night, their cabin was the only one in use. When I knocked, 5 young women opened the door, clearly shaken. They explained they'd been outside, laughing and drinking when they heard footsteps, leaves crunching just beyond the tree line. At first, they thought it was an animal. But then 2 of them saw it. A man, peeking from behind a tree with a massive, unnatural smile on his face. They screamed. Everyone turned and caught a glimpse of the same chilling figure, grinning, motionless. They ran back inside and locked the door. Minutes later, that same man, or thing, walked past the window, still smiling. They begged me to search the area and make sure it was safe. It was only their first night there. I told them to lock up, stay inside, and I'd let them know if I found anything. So I grabbed my flashlight and headed into the forest. By then, the fog had thickened. It was getting dark. Even after years on that job, I never got used to how eerie the place could feel. Suddenly, footsteps behind me. Slow, deliberate. I spun around, and there he was. A tall silhouette, barely visible between the trees. But the smile. That same hideous, glowing smile. I pointed my light at him, but it was like he vanished into the fog. I called out, "Who are you? You're not allowed to be out here." No answer. Just that grin. I warned him again, but suddenly he started walking toward me, still smiling, completely unfazed. I began to back away. To be honest, I was terrified. And I had nothing to defend myself with. I yelled at him to stop. He didn't. The closer he got, the wider that grin seemed to stretch. That's when I turned and ran. I was so panicked that I dropped my radio, trying to call for help. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I just kept running. Eventually, I slowed down, looked over my shoulder. He was gone. That's when it hit me. I was completely lost. Everything around me looked unfamiliar. The sun was gone. It was just me and the forest. And him, somewhere out there. I kept walking, hoping I'd stumble across something familiar. Then I saw it. A massive tree, with what looked like lifeless bodies hanging from its branches. And at the base of the tree, he stood there, still smiling, watching me, loving every second of my fear. I stumbled backward, tripped over a rock, and dropped my flashlight. By the time I grabbed it and looked again, he was gone. So were the hanging bodies. But know what I saw? I ran again, blindly this time, until I saw a distant light. It was my supervisor. He and another ranger had come looking for me. Shaking, I told them everything. I thought they'd laugh or not believe me. But to my surprise, they didn't. Because they had seen him too. And not just him. Other shadowy figures, strange sounds, things no animal could make. My supervisor said that forest held dark history, tragedies, unsolved crimes, even rumors of cult activity. He wasn't shocked that paranormal things happened there. The next morning, the women left the cabin. They were too afraid to stay. After that night, almost no one rented the cabins anymore. The story spread. The fear grew. I eventually quit. But sometimes, I still wonder if anyone out there is brave or foolish enough to spend the night in that forest.